and welcome to another episode of If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed. And I'm a big believer that everything in the mind can be managed. And I think today we are going to veer to a different kind of part of the mind and consciousness and spirituality. And I think I've got a feeling the internal conversations that we have and we're scared to talk about will definitely be a conversation with you, Naomi. But Naomi, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, say hi to If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed, the Mind Management Mentors podcast with Cuddy and
Naomi Haigh. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Cuddy. I really appreciate it. And hello to all of you listeners. My name is Naomi Haigh. I am a psychic medium and a spiritual mentor. I also am the host of the Modern Psychic podcast. So I have my own podcast where we talk about what being a psychic means in this modern world, in today's world. We're redefining that. There's a lot of stigma around when people say psychic or medium. And so, really trying to shift that because I fully believe that we all are. And it's just about creating conversations around what that actually means. And yeah, so thank you for having me on. I mainly work with other entrepreneurs and help them put spirituality into like apply it practically into their lives and businesses. And everybody has their own unique spiritual gifts, their own unique way of connecting, moving their energy. And I'm really excited to talk about how it's related to our mindset because I'm a very analytical person. I'll just give you a little bit of background about me. I wasn't always a psychic. I wasn't, I don't feel like I was born, to feel and see the things that I feel and see now. And so growing up, I felt like I was just very analytical, very, more logical. I went through business school, and that was kind of my mindset. Was I was going to go through college, get my business degrees and work for, a large company in some kind of analytics or management area. So very structured, very practical. and and so I did all of that. I put myself through college, and um so I have two master's degrees. I have an MBA and a master's in HR. And then I went and worked for a corporation. It's a holding company for 7 large banks here in the United States. And I was in their IT department as a business analyst. And so I did that for 7 years. And then towards the end of that 7 years is when I came across energy work and spirituality. I had never, it never really came onto my radar. When you go to fairs and stuff, every once in a while, I would go get my cards read, and it was like, okay, that was fun. But I never really, put a lot of thought into like me being one or me jumping into that world, so to speak. And I happened to hear somebody, and this was on a Facebook group. I was just kind of scrolling. It was a women's business, entrepreneur group, and I was just kind of scrolling, seeing what was posting, and someone posted that they were a Reiki master, and I was like, "What?" They were like, "What is that?" I had never heard about Reiki before, and so I Googled it because my mind just was curious, and then it was like energy work and energy healing, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool." And so I Googled, Reiki in my town, and um, I one person came up, one place, and so I was like, let me go try it. And so I booked a session for the next day, and then that same day I met my soon to be mentor in a yoga class, and I didn't know that I was going to be mentoring with her, but um the next day I went and had Reiki done. And so for those of you who don't know, it's just kind of this chakra balancing of the chakras, energetic centers in your body. And the practitioner kind of hovers over your body. And so, the first part of it was just like little tingles here and there. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then she told me to turn around onto my stomach, which is not really what you usually do. You usually just stay on your back. And so I was like, I didn't know. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I turned around, and when she started hovering over my back, I just felt this huge surge of energy like coming out of my back, and it felt like a tornado was like forming. And I was like, my analytical brain was like, what is going on? I have no idea what this is, and it does not make any sense to me right now. And I was intrigued, but like still I knew I was going to be okay, but I like just the amount of energy that was coming out of my back, it felt like, or coming into my back. uh I felt like I couldn't move. Like all I was doing was just like, just breathe, just breathe, just breathe. I knew that I would be okay. I knew that it would subside, but I was just like in awe, and was just like, what is going on? And so it finally did. The practitioner started moving her hands towards the middle of my back, and I could feel the tornado, so to speak, like come down. And then I felt my energy, back to normal, and I flipped around and I was like, what did you do? Like, what was that? I want to know everything. I need to know. My brain needs to know everything that is going on here, because it does not make any sense, and it needs to make sense to me. And so that started me on the path towards learning about energy work, learning about spirituality. I was born and raised mostly in Utah, and so, we have the Mormon culture here. I was never into religion. I went to a couple different, you know, um, church meetings and stuff with friends when I was growing up, and they were like, "You have to come," and I would go and I would listen, and it just didn't resonate with me. And I was like, this, no, no, I don't, I don't know what you guys are hearing, but I'm hearing something and it doesn't click. And so, and I never really judged anybody for it, but it just wasn't my thing. And so, while I was younger and into my teenage years, I would go to different churches and, just listen. Like I'm like, I just want to see what they believe, and then I want to see what they believe, and again, just collecting data, collecting information. I'm just curious. I want to understand. And there were some similarities with the way people talked about things, spirituality and connecting and energy, but then they had their religious kind of information as well, specific to each religion,
Mhm.
and the ways that you should do things, the ways that you shouldn't, that those kind of beliefs, and nothing really resonated. And so when I started into this energy work and learning about energy, learning about um more about, what we are capable of as humans, as a spirit, and like then spirituality started making sense to me. It started really connecting and coming into place. And then and so I um my strongest spiritual gift, we all have them. The main ones, for those of you that don't know, uh and these are also called psychic gifts, but there's hearing, so that's called clairaudience, where you kind of get these, you can either hear things like somebody talking to you. Most of the time it comes in a thought, like if you think a question and then you get that answer in your head, and you kind of hear it with your own voice. That's clairaudience.
What?
That's spirit, that's your intuition kind of giving you that information.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder about this, and then you get the solution, and it just pops in, and it's like you can hear it in your head. And so that's my strongest gift, is clairaudience. And then there's clairsentience, where you feel, and that's where people talk about having a gut feeling. I don't know, it doesn't feel right. I just have this gut feeling, or um, that's called clairsentience. There's clairvoyance, where it's more visual. People actually see, an image if they're thinking of a question, and then they get an image popped in, or kind of the answer is in a visual sense, kind of popping into their mind, or their mind's eye is what we call it. And um, or you could actually see a sign like outwardly, here's your answer on like a billboard or something. That's called clairvoyance. There's claircognizance, which is just a knowing, like it just drops in, like I just know. I don't know how I know, I just know. And so those are the main kind of psychic gifts. And so I know, even if you haven't really thought of them as psychic gifts, a lot of us have had those experiences, right? And um, so when I was learning all of this, I learned, that these are psychic gifts, and all of our psychic gifts can be trained, like they're muscles. The more that you fine tune them, the more you can use them for just like any other muscle. I can lift more weights here. I can put my focus in and gather information better from, my spiritual gifts, my psychic gifts, if I hone them and train them. And so I started working with mentors, and learned how to actually use those gifts to my advantage, because I was already analytical, and I'm very curious about things. And so um, this is just a faster way to gather information. And I feel like that's where, mindset comes in, because we are already trying to focus our brains on something, and, this is what I want. This is the outcome I want to have. But when we add in that already ingrained intuition, it just magnifies that like 100,000 fold. And so I learned that I can take all of my business knowledge, because I learned how to use my psychic gifts, and I started doing readings on people, and I can connect to past loved ones, and and that's called mediumship, is when I connect with past loved ones, I bring their messages forward. I learned how to do all of that, but then I was like, okay, well, I've got all these psychic gifts, and so I could go be a psychic, but why did I go to business school, and what is the point? Like, again, it needed to make sense to me. And then it was just kind of showing me, well, you merge them, silly. You put them together. And I was like, how is that possible? That those are two different worlds. Like, how do you do that? And it's like, this is all you, like this is your world, you can do whatever you want to. And so I learned that I started doing readings for entrepreneurs and focusing on their businesses, and learned that I could hone in on different questions they were having about their businesses, or different problems they were having about their businesses, and I could use my intuition and get straight into the root cause of their problems and how to fix it, without really having them tell me much about their business. I didn't have to do a whole analysis on their business. I didn't have to ask everybody all these questions. I can literally just connect to the energy of their business, and then my business brain takes over, and it says, okay, here's kind of how their processes are set up. They're doing this more manually, and they need to do this more digitally, and here's how to shift it. Or they're having a personnel problem, and it's because there's too many people doing this one job, and I get this information through my clairaudience. I'm getting told this, and I don't have to ask them. I'm literally just getting told this through my intuition. Here's what's going on with their business. And then when I tell them that, they're like, how in the hell did you know that? I'm like, it's intuition. So and it makes sense to them, and they apply that information that I gave them. Here's the solutions here that I feel are going to help you with those things. They apply them, and it works out. And so I've learned how to do that for myself to help other people, but I can also help entrepreneurs connect to their own intuition to do it for themselves. So
Yeah.
that's in a big nutshell what I do.
Don't think I've asked you a question yet.
No. Sorry, I'm just like taking over, but
That's a great intro. That was a very, very big intro, and I can see it. So I do have some questions because by the way, well done for labeling all the different kind of clairvoyancy that there is in mediumship because I didn't know there was that many. Because
oh,
I was gonna ask you is when you said at the beginning of the conversation, I wrote something down was, there's always there is a negative stereotype to some psychics and mediumship.
mhm.
And that negative side would be cold reading, isn't it? It's cold reading that a lot of psychics can use to overgeneralize some information to be able to do that. Because that's the negative side of psychic. It's something,
Yes.
yeah. So that was I was gonna ask about cold reading. And you did mention that there's a part of mediumship that is when you start seeing people around you and things like that, and that's a different part of clairvoyancy. And I wanted to know, did you ever have that as a child then?
No. Nope. I
Yeah,
never felt like, yeah, I never felt like I had that. Even still when I'm sensing presences of
yeah,
past loved ones or other people's past loved ones, I don't see
okay,
anything. And that's the cool thing about our spiritual gifts, like, and our mindset and how we can structure our spiritual gifts to work for us is because you can customize it, and so a lot of times our spiritual gifts will open up without us knowing, especially if you were born with them. You couldn't really customize it because you were born with them, but as you get older and learn how to use your mind to be able to
yeah,
create your reality, you can customize it. So even if you've always been able to see spirits, or things you don't want to see, then it's like I can train my mind to tell it not to do that anymore. And I can train it to show me only this now. Um, and so we have these filters, but no, I didn't feel like growing up I had any of that. I was always really open-minded to the
mhm,
possibility, so when I would hear about people that were psychics and they could connect to past loved ones, I was like, I don't doubt that. I just and for me it was like I just don't want anything to do with it. Like, I would cards when I did card readings, or when people would do readings for me with cards, that was safe. Like, I was like, okay, that's okay. But when someone would say, hey, do you want a reading, I can connect to your past loved ones, I was like, no, I'm good. Like, and so it's kind of ironic that I am able to do that.
So if somebody was to come to you next week and say, "Oh, can you find out what my grandma thinks about my business?" Would you say yay or nay to that?
Oh yes, absolutely.
You'd say
Yep.
yes or no.
Yes. Yes, I can.
Yes, right,
I
perfect. That's fine. Right, okay.
can.
I'm not going to put you under the spot and say, "What does my grandma think about the podcast?" I'm not going to do that. It's fine.
Yeah, well, if you want to, we could go there. Like, I'm open.
Okay, so I've got a question for you, Naomi. What does my grandma think about my podcasts?
Your grandma?
My grandma. My
Oh,
grandma. Go on.
grandma.
Let me put you
Okay.
on. Perfect.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So let me see. We're gonna go ahead and, like, I just need a second to
No,
connect.
it's fine.
So
Take time. Take time.
um let me see. Cuddy's grandmother. First of all, the first thing I get with her is this really like happy energy. I felt like you had a really good relationship with your grandmother. I felt like she's just kind of making me feel like kindred energies, you bouncing back and forth off of each other. I feel like she is like a very sparky, witty woman. She could just, and I felt like she was like that until mostly the end. Like it never stopped. And it was always, she's just saying, it was always laughs with you two. And you were always just laughing and joking together all the time. So with your podcast, she's making me feel like she how does she want to put this? Like, she's really proud of what you've done. She does love it, but she's also kind of shown me this sense of like, um there needs to be more fun, like the way that she makes me feel like the majority of the things that you've done have been more serious, and that's not you. And so she's like, like it's good, it's a good start. I don't know if you've just started this, but she's making me feel like it's a good start, but let's liven it up here, let's bring out some fun. Let's get more engagement in you bringing out your wit, because she's making me feel like you have a very sharp wit, and she's like showing me that in like cheese, like I don't know if she was a cheese eater, but she's like, you that really sharp cheese where it's like, oh, like she's like, that's where he is, and he can do it, but you're playing it safe is kind of what she's showing me with your personality, like letting that out more. Um, because you really do have a gift for connecting with people, through your personality. And so she's like, it's great, but it can be greater with you infusing that. Infuse that personality more, and she's just like, it's gonna be amazing. And she's also alluding to her cooking, because she's like my cooking was amazing. Was she a good cook?
She was a good cook. I remember it was the what I always remember about my grandma, and it's probably a really American thing, but we had a Sunpat processed cheese in jars. So we used to always have cheese.
That's why she brought up the cheese.
It is
Okay.
why she brought up the cheese.
That's why she brought
Oh,
up the cheese.
God.
Yep. Because I was like, why is she showing me in cheese? Like, that's interesting. Yep. So that's funny you brought up the cheese too.
I do hold back because I am extremely sharp-tongued in all fairness, but
Ah,
I do
yeah.
try and keep it professional for the podcasts when we're talking to people. So no, that's very good, very nice. I like that.
Yep. But she's very proud of you and excited, because she makes me feel like that was the vision, that you wanted to talk to people to relate to them on a personal level. And so she's like, then let out your personal characteristics. Let that out more. Let that personality out more. If you wanted to do this, then let it out. She makes me feel like she was a straight shooter. Like she would call you on your stuff in a heartbeat.
That.
And so
Thank you very much.
so yeah, but yeah, she's very excited about it. There's, let's see, one more thing here. And again, this is kind of like almost like she wants to bust your balls here. She's you talked about, before we started recording, you asked me if I was a basketball player, or like if I liked basketball. And she's kind of like picking on your favorite basketball team. She's like, how they doing this year? So is your basketball team not doing too well?
Technically, I don't really have a team anymore.
Oh, you do?
I followed the Bulls growing up, and I suppose I'm not the biggest James fan, but I suppose I do watch Lakers to find out how they're getting on and stuff like that, and they're not doing very well, to be fair.
Ah, they're not doing very okay. Because
No,
she's like there was a favorite team of some sort. Yep, and she's just kind of picking on that, like, hey, how are they doing, by the way? So that's cute. She's a very cute woman.
she was a cute little woman, bless her. She was. Well, thank you very much
Yep,
for that. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Honestly,
Um,
and to be put
let's
on the
see.
spotlight, all this.
Sorry, sometimes when they just linger, they want to say something else here. Um, Not about your podcast, so let me see what else it is. Um, let's see here. Was she your mother's mom?
Yeah,
Okay. And your mother's still alive, right?
yeah.
Okay. Because she's kind of making me feel like she wants to send a message to your mother here. So let me see uh what's going on here. Okay, she's bringing up something with health, and I'm not going to go into specifics with that. But she's just like, take a rest, woman. Like to rest. So I don't know if your mom is just go, 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 or a worrier, like I got things I got to do it, like I'm just feeling this more busy energy from your mother. And she's like, this is making the health issues worse. And she really, the simplest thing to do is just rest. Like she really just needs to rest and she won't have all of that inflammation. So she's looking for outside things to help with that. And she's like, it's rest, like it's rest. So she really just wants to kind of add that in there really quick. It feels important. And so yeah, she wanted that relayed, if you will, to your mother there. So um okay, that's what she wanted. So thank you.
My mum is actually, to be fair, my mum is a worrier and an overthinker. That's probably
Uh,
what I got into the business that I got into, to be fair, because I saw what my mum used to go through with things like that. Um,
oh wow.
is there anybody in Utah? Are you on your own?
No, I have all my family here.
All right,
Yep.
okay. I heard a sound on the when you were channeling. I heard a sound on your microphone. I heard something coming through the speakers, something really weird.
Oh, it was my pug, my
Ah,
dog.
I heard something. I was like, "Whoa, that's
Sorry.
so no, it's
My
fine,
husband was sleeping upstairs and I put a note on the door
fine."
saying, "Don't let the dog out." And then here comes the dog.
Well, you've answered a famous question there, Liam. I mean, I would have asked who let the dogs out. We now know it was your husband. It's
It
fine.
was my husband. Yes, he let the dogs out.
You've answered the age-old question. Fantastic. Well done. Right. So, do you feel, and I think feel's an appropriate word for this question as well. Do you feel that energy healing that you had in the tornadoes with the reiki, do you feel that opened up something?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would never have went down it to me it just felt like that really got my attention, but it also felt like it unlocked something because that led me down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole, so to speak. And um as I've been learning things, it when I learn something and um it just makes sense to me. It makes sense to my soul. Doesn't make sense to my logical brain why I would understand it and why
Um,
I would
is that a link?
why I'd be able to integrate it for so easily, but it makes sense to my soul. And so it was just this like Pandora's box. Oh, here we go. Now it's time. Now it's time to open this up. Now it's time to remember this. And um we're just gonna give it to her in a fire hose, and that's exactly how it's been. This started in 2018, so it hasn't been too long. But just the amount of information I'm able to understand and absorb, and I guess my soul remembers, oh, we're able to do this now. And as humans, we actually have the capacity to do these things. And so, I'm able to help other people do things that even I don't know how to do, but I get that information on how to help them. And so people that, can read auras or see auras, like I can't do that. But when I'm mentoring somebody that can do that, I'm getting information on how to help them strengthen that gift. It's not coming from me, but it's coming from a soul remembering that
Hmm.
somewhere I understood it. And so I'm just relaying that information and I'm helping them open their gifts and I'm helping them strengthen them. And so that's, yeah, it really did unlock that gift and that ability to teach others at such a wide range. And I kind of quantum leaped that learning phase of I got to learn about auras and I got to learn about chakras and I got to learn about this. Like it's like, no, we're just gonna download it into you and help you remember and open that up. So I really do believe that Reiki started that and opened it. Yep.
Yeah, I downloading for me and I because I'm a big believer. I get so many downloads, so many text,
Awesome.
and it's always when I'm driving, and it's when
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I go into flow state when I'm driving. I get to places and I'm like, I don't even know how I got here, to be honest with you. And my mum used to always say to me, "You've not indicated once on that drive," because you get into automatic pilot driving places when you go there all the time. And I know that
Yep.
those different brain waves, the alpha, beta, delta, gamma states as we're driving and things like that. What I would ask is those downloads, and I absolutely love those downloads and those ideas. And I'm always texting one of my friends. I'm like, oh my God, I've had this idea. I've had this idea. How does somebody know they've had a download? What's the signs for them?
What I've come to know is that it's when you're when you haven't logically thought of it, when you haven't logically thought about the process, you haven't done the research on how would I know that,
Yeah.
and it just kind of comes in and it does, it makes sense to you. It's a thought, it's an idea. It's just information that, you know, just kind of feels like it's coming in. When I have downloads, it feels like I kind of just walk under a waterfall. So I actually kind
Mm.
of feel it coming down, and it comes down in information. So I'm getting a piece of information and then it trickles another piece, another piece, another piece, and it just kind of piles up. And then, yeah, it's, you know, some people call it epiphanies and
Yeah.
inspiration, but, you know, download, all of it is the same thing. So,
I get some of my best ideas when I'm just about semi-conscious waking up in the morning. And it's
yep.
like whatever I've just released something and I'm like, oh my God, that's the training I need to do. I can do that, that, that. And so I've created a mind map. If I wake up at 7 o'clock every morning, I get my best ideas at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's just the strangest thing. I had one this morning and I was
Yeah,
like, no, I can block that training. It's just that little different state of brain consciousness. We've let go. We're just not fully conscious yet. And boom, the information comes in.
absolutely. Yep. And that's just because we're not trying to control it
Yep.
with our actual, you know, brain.
Yeah.
We're using soul memory, we're using soul retrieval.
Yeah.
And so, yep, absolutely. But when you put the two together, that's when it's the most powerful.
So how much do you use meditation for yourself or for the businesses? Um, do you meditate? Do you use meditation?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I meditate a lot. I actually, one of my downloads when I was first starting to learn Reiki and starting to learn about all of this, same thing. I was just starting to wake up, and all of this information came in on you, like making meditation pillows. It's like you need to make a meditation pillow. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's like the patterns that you can use, and here's the different shape that it can be than just, you know, a round pillow. And so I was like, okay, that's all great. And I just got up and started writing it all down. And then I was like, okay, but I don't sew and I have no desire to sew. Like, why are you telling me this? Like, why are you telling me this? And it was like, well, you've been meditating and you complain that because I do meditate for a long time because I'm so curious. And
Yeah.
so um I get information and then I'm like, well, why is that? And then I get more information. I'm like, well, why is that? I'm a toddler. Like I want to know everything. And I'm like, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Until I get to an answer that's like, oh, okay, I'm good now. Like I'm good. But it takes, you know, I just want to know. I'm a sponge with all of this. I just want to absorb as much as I can, and I want to understand it from a practical level, and then I want to understand the higher levels of why we're doing this in the first place. So if I get guidance on something like the meditation pillows, here, make a meditation pillow, it's like, okay, like, and I ask why, then it's like, well, because you've been meditating on this other pillow and then you said your hips hurt, and I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, but still, why? Like, but why even further? Why in a deeper sense do I need to make the meditation pillows? And and for me, the way that it came out, it showed me the patterns that I was going to be using. I like brighter colors, even though I also wear a lot of black. I like bright, bold colors. I like sharp like geometry and sharp shapes and, you know, pictures and stuff that just really pop out. And and it was like, well, you're using these patterns because these patterns have sacred geometry in them. There's a reason why you like these sharp geometric shapes. There's energy in each of these shapes, you know, and that is old, and that is old wisdom that is not being used in this modern day anymore.
Mm.
Using these shapes, using the colors in a certain way. There's energy to the colors, and like that's ready to be unlocked. That's ready to be used. And so when people are sitting on these pillows, it's not just for you. Like I got told to share these pillows with other people. And it's like when they sit on them, their soul is going to remember, and it's going to lock into those shapes and those colors to be able to open things up better. It's going to be like holding a crystal. It's going to amplify their soul memory to retrieve more of what they need to remember for their awakening, for their spiritual evolution. And so I did. I asked, like, yeah, who's gonna sew these? And it's like, well, you are. And I'm like, but I don't even know how to sew. And then I got a picture just popped in my head of my cousin, and it was just her face. It just popped in and popped out, and it was like, oh, she does sew. I was like, okay, I guess I ask her. And I hadn't talked to her in months, and I just called her and I was like, hey, I had a dream. Can you help me make these pillows? And this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I started doing that, and I would just make them in small batches, and I would just share them on social media like, hey, I just made these pillows, and people would buy them, and it was just like, oh, that one's calling to me, oh, that one's calling to me, and they would sit on them and use them, and then they'd reach out a couple weeks later and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never been able to meditate as much as I have, or as strong as I have, unless I'm sitting on that pillow. If I sit on other pillows that I have, it doesn't do the same. And so it just kind of, those downloads, when we follow that guidance of whatever inspiration we got, um, it's incredible, right? It's incredible to see the ripple that it actually makes, and how easy it actually is for us to initiate that and to put those actions into place, like, and the ripples that it creates, like we couldn't even imagine that that's how it would be, right? And so making those pillows, was to help with other people's ascension. But then again, I was like, but why for me? And it was like, you've never created anything in your life. I've always tweaked other people's creations as a business mind, as an analyst. Okay, you created this, here's how you can fix it, here's how you can make it better, but I've never created anything on my own. And it's like, you don't believe that you're a creator as well. We need to unlock that. We need to change that inner monologue with you, because you are. And so we're going to prove it by having you start with this physical objects, making these physical things, sharing them, showing yourself that you're a creator, getting the responses that people enjoy your creations. It's teaching you to be a creator and to step into your power as a creator. And it just unlocked a lot of my feminine energy that I've just been suppressing. I always said I wasn't creative, and just started really opening that up. And that's another superpower that a lot of us are unlocking right now, is our creativity and our feminine energy, men, women, everybody alike. Because we've suppressed it for so long.
Yeah.
But and intuition is part of that. Using that feminine energy, it's unknown, it's unseen. We can't see intuition coming in, and we can't organize it outwardly in a masculine way. So we have to do everything internally. But this is the other huge muscle that we are not using in our energetic and physical bodies, and that's what wants to come out. And it's about marrying the two, taking our masculine energy, our logical sense, our structural sense, our business sense, and then throwing in that creativity, throwing in that intuition and inspiration, and making something more incredible than we could even imagine. And so that's our expansion as humans, that's our capabilities as humans, and not a lot of us are really using that to our full capabilities. And I'm just skimming the surface. I know I'm just at the top of the iceberg. Like, I'm still like, what else can we do here? Because I want to do it, like I want to understand it. And we're shifting what just being a human actually means in today's world. Like, it's not just we're not just human. Just human is awesome. Just human is amazing if we allow ourselves to connect to this other piece of us that has been suppressed for so long, and to open it up and to venture into that unknown and unseen part
Yeah.
of ourselves, the spirit, and bring it out and actually figure out how to use it and how to make things happen in this physical world. So, yep.
No, it's to hear you talk about it, I can clearly see the divine popping out. The confidence in the explanation is very visible.
Yeah,
In fact,
it's taken a long time. I was very resistant at first. But
so would you suggest you've had the spiritual awakening then?
oh, absolutely.
And what
Yep.
did the spiritual awakening feel like?
For me, so for those of you that don't know what Reiki is, and I don't know if I'm even saying it right. Some people say Reiki.
Reiki,
Um,
yeah, I get it.
yeah, but when you're learning to become a Reiki practitioner, you have three main attunements that you go through. And so uh, with Reiki, you use these certain symbols. Um, and really it's just making these symbols in your imagination, or some people like to actually draw it out with their fingers. When they're working on people, they'll put these little symbols in place, and I think they're Japanese symbols.
Yeah,
Um, and and it represents a certain like energy that you're kind of helping to open up people's energy centers with. So um
kind of sounds like Doctor Strange, where he opens up the.
exactly. Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. And so you learn so much about Reiki and so much about the practices of it, and then you get your first attunement. And what that means is it's about another person that's went through all three levels of Reiki, and they come to you and they put those symbols in your hands, and they draw those symbols in your hands, and then they kind of push that energy into place and activate that, help you activate that within yourself. And so when I had my first Reiki attunement with my mentor that I learned from, she did that to me. You know, I sat down and then she was kind of walking around me, um, moving energy and stuff. But then she put those symbols in my hands, and, you know, I felt my palms get really hot and stuff. And the mentor that I learned from, she was like more unconventional, I guess. She's like this amazing um nature sprite woman. She's went to all these different countries and learned from different tribes on these different things and stuff. And so she kind of integrated her own way of teaching and moving energy when she was teaching me, which was awesome. That's exactly what I needed. So I learned Reiki, but then I learned extra stuff from her. And so when she was doing the attunement, usually you just do the attunement, put it in your hands, and then you're good. But she was also using like this whistle from Peru, some Peruvian tribe and stuff. And so she was going around me with this whistle, and then she came behind my back, to the back of my head. And when she blew into the whistle, you know, you talked about Doctor Strange. This is another Marvel reference, but it was like when Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, when his dad touched his head and he just saw the universe. Like that's literally what I felt like. She blew in the back of my head, and my everything, like it was just, I saw the whole entire universe, and it was just, and it was beautiful. And I just immediately started crying, and I was just like, like I'd never seen anything so expansive and so amazing. And then it all just came back, and I came back into my body, and I was like, oh, like what was that? And yeah, I was crying, and all I could do was tell her thank you. Like I was just like, thank you. Like I needed to see that. I needed to understand that. And like, and so that I felt like was my spiritual awakening. It really, like,
sounds amazing.
I needed to see how expansive this whole thing was, so that I wouldn't limit myself to just learning Reiki. Like I was gonna, I was, I'm a lifelong learner now. I know that everything that I learned in this lifetime is not is a smidge of
Yeah.
what's available for us as humans. And I'm here for all of it. So absolutely.
And I think the transformation from analytical, and I know you always said you were quite curious, which is great.
Mhm.
But you also mentioned that you were from computers and analytical, which is quite data driven and quite logical. And
Yes.
nothing that's happened to you is logical, right? So for you and for your brain, you'd be like, there's no part of this that's logical. But for you
Right.
to have that experience, that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember some visions that I had when, because I'm a keen meditator. I think meditation is fantastic.
Wonderful.
It really is. I have moved away from meditating as much. I do it every Sunday with clients all over the world. But I remember some of the meditations that I had, and one of them I actually scripted a horror movie. And all these ideas and these scenes came to me. I'm like, oh, I've got to write this down. So I started having a book at the time with meditations. I'm like, I've got to start writing this. And we made a little 15-minute horror movie on one of the cruise ships that I was on with all
Yeah.
got it to me, and everyone was like, actually, it was actually really quite good. This little 15-minute thing into a dance and a presentation. So, meditation opened up an awful lot of things for me, and I think it always comes back to, and I know you've referenced that is the more we learn, the less we know.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how ego gets put down. Is that the more we learn, the less we know, and the more we become curious and less judgmental, and ego gets pushed to the side. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Well, is there anything else you want to share with us?
Going back to like entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
business owners, business professionals, like the thing that I've learned, it's not, like when all of that happened or when I have these big, spiritual experiences, uh I do sit in meditation and I do exactly like I just why. I want to know why. And the data does come in. The data starts to come in and it does make logical sense for me, or else I wouldn't accept it. My being would not accept it. Because what I believe and again, and this is my logical mind, is why would something just random happen to me or to anybody else for no reason, like for no reason at all? And or why would these big spiritual experiences happen for us to only think that it's a spiritual experience? Well, it happened here on Earth, so obviously there's some integrating that came about it, because why wouldn't it just happen in a dream state? Why wouldn't it just happen, yeah, as I was waking up? Why did it happen in this practical reality while I was awake if I wasn't supposed to gather information from it and use it in this practical sense,
yeah,
And so when we're driving and we have those downloads, we have those inspiration moments. When you're in a meeting and someone says something and you get this, that's not right, this is what it is, and you don't say anything, like that's your cube. It's not just coming in to interrupt your thought process, it's coming in to help you in the physical right now. And it's about trusting those more spiritual, more, illogical things, because if you break it down, it is logical and it does make sense. There, like the spirit is very, very intelligent. And because I've connected and done so much meditation and connected to the spirit on so many things and asked for information, I want to know, I want to understand this. We can't even imagine the intelligence that it has. Like everything is for a purpose, everything is for a reason, everything is down to like this mathematical science. Even though it doesn't feel like it feels unknown, it feels unnatural to us. It's just because we haven't strengthened those muscles. And the more that we start to strengthen them, the more it makes sense. The more it is logical, the more it is relevant to our practical everyday lives.
Mm.
And that's the integration that wants to happen more and more right now. And so, when you think that you're just a practical person, when you think that you're just a logical person, you're not a creative person, like you're really limiting half of your capability on this practical reality right now. And so the logical thing to do is learn about this other side of you, learn about stepping into this. So you're always looking at maximizing your potential. Like, this is the biggest maximization that you are ever going to get. Like, learning how to do this and learning how to synchronize it with your reality is the most maximum you're ever going to be able to get. And so that's what I would want to leave people with is it's not a separate thing. It's not just for people that are putting their heads in the clouds. Like, no, this is a very practical, very real thing. And just with all the experiences that I've had, that's why I have such conviction for it, because I do it scared. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, this is what I'm getting. Here we go. And I see the results play out more than I could have even imagined, and to my benefit. And it all comes back, and it can be easy, it can be simpler. You don't have to work as hard. And it's amazing. Like, why wouldn't you use this? All it takes is to just step into that other side of you, strengthen those muscles. Start small, just like any workout. Don't have to dive into connecting with aliens, but it's just those little voices that you get here and there, those little nudges, those little feelings, those little knowings. Like, follow those. Start there. That's your door, your little door to the wonderland. And you just got to crawl through that, and then you'll get the next steps and the next steps. And that's how you start to strengthen it and use it. And you can stop it anytime you want to. Just because you open something up doesn't mean you have to go all the way in. Like, whatever feels good to you, do it. But it's about trusting that other piece of you, because it's on purpose. There's no coincidence. It's not just made up in your head. It's not just for somebody else that is out in the clouds. Like, this is coming to you for a reason, and spirit knows exactly how you incarnated into this life. If you are a logical person, they are going to bring things into your reality. And if you ask questions, it will make sense. It will logically make sense to you. If you're a type of person that's just flowy and it's like, I don't need to know, then that's how spirit's going to present it. Okay, here. She's good with this, she's good with that, and let's just let her go. Perfect. But if you're somebody that's, I got to know everything, I got to understand it, like, then practice like that. Take the time. If you get something, ask questions, ask internal questions. I want to know why that happened. I want to understand it more. I want to sit with this and let my mind do its work
Yeah.
to logically understand why that happened, because there is data in there. There is so much intelligent data out there, and it's incredible. So I would say that.
Fantastic, Naomi. I can clearly see that you are channeling Anunnaki on a daily basis, and I love that. And I think I'm sure there's going to be more talking about Anunnaki in the future as well. But connecting to our higher self is so important, and it can be so soothing. And I know you mentioned fear there. It is scary with the unknown, and there's so much unknown out there, but be curious with the unknown. And if that's one message that we can have for everybody, is just be curious with the unknown. It's not as scary as what we like to think. And those feelings of fear can create so much love and happiness within ourselves. And I think that's a really powerful part. Naomi Haigh, thank you so much for coming up onto the Mind Management Mentors. You were absolutely right. It was the right call. You did come and ask the right person for the podcast. And if we can finish on this, if it's in the mind, spirituality it can be managed. As always, big love from Cuddy. Naomi, say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Cuddy. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all.